the forgotten massacre that ignited the Kashmir dispute. In November 1947, thousands of Muslims were killed in Jammu by paramilitaries led by the army of Dogra ruler Hari Singh. Srinagar, Indian-administered Kashmir. The family of Israr Ahmad Khan lived through the massacre of Jammu in what was then part of the princely state of Kashmir.
He recalls that many of his relatives were killed during the violence that followed months after British rule over Indian subcontinent ended. My father was young then, and other immediate family members were in Kashmir at that time. But many of my relatives were brutally killed, the 63-year-old told Al Jazeera. To be honest, that was a mad period. There was no humanity shown at that time, Khan, who retired as senior police officer, said at his home in Jammu.
The exact number of casualties in the killings that continued for 2 months is not known, but estimates range from 20,000 to 237,000, and nearly 500,000 forced into displacement across the border into the newly created nation of Pakistan and its administered part of Kashmir. Khan said many of his relatives had escaped to Pakistan, where they continue to live. The incident divided families. There were a lot of Muslims in Jammu, but now you won't find many, he said. The killings took place when millions of Muslims, Hindus and Sikhs were crossing the border from one side to the other as part of the British-designed plan to partition the subcontinent into India and Pakistan. The immediate impact of partition was in Jammu. The Muslim subjects from different parts of Jammu province were forcibly displaced by the Dogra army in a program of expulsion and murder carried out over 3 weeks between October and November 1947. Idris Kanth, a fellow at the International Institute of Social History in Amsterdam who researched the 1940s history of Kashmir, told Al Jazeera.
The historians say that the killings carried out by the Hindu rulers' army and Sikh army was a state-sponsored genocide to bring out demographic changes in Jammu, a region which had an overwhelming population of Muslims. The massacre of more than 2 lakh or 200,000 Muslims was state-sponsored and state-supported. The forces from Patiala, Punjab were called in. RSS, a right-wing Hindu organization, was brought to communalize the whole scenario and kill Muslims, said P.G. Rasool, the author of a book, The Historical Reality of Kashmir Dispute.
In mid-October, the Dogra army troops began expelling Muslim villagers from Jammu province. The refugees were sent on foot toward West Punjab, later to form part of Pakistan, where most were accommodated in refugee camps in the districts of Sialkot, Jhelum, Gujarat, and Rawalpindi. On November 5th, the Dogra army soldiers began another organized evacuation of the Muslims, but instead of taking them to Sialkot, as they had been promised, the trucks drove them to forest hills of Rajouri districts of Jammu, where they were executed. There may have been a systematic attempt by the dying Dogra regime to ensure that records of the incident are destroyed, making it a lesser-known massacre of the partition.
An estimated 70,000 people have been killed in the violence in past 3 decades since the armed revolt against Indian rule broke out in the region in 1989. The forgotten massacre of Jammu Muslims in 1947 set a template of impunity and violence. State troopers as well as Hindus and Sikhs fleeing the violence of partition have been accused of mass atrocities in the former princely state under Hari Singh. Pogroms in Jammu. The most detailed account of the killings in Jammu are provided by Australian political scientist Christopher Snedden, a longtime researcher of Kashmir, who published his Kashmir, The Unwritten History in 2013. Snedden's marshalling of evidence of the violence based on interviews with survivors and archival research is detailed and persuasive. From the picture that emerges, thousands of Muslim men and women were allegedly massacred in 4 eastern Jammu districts, Jammu, Kathua, Udhampur and Chani Jagir, from late September through to early November 1947. Jammu and Kashmir state troops, along with Hindus and Sikhs escaping violence in West Punjab, have been accused of these mass killings. Re-examining history. The forgotten massacre of Jammu Muslims in 1947 set a template of impunity and violence. State troopers as well as Hindus and Sikhs fleeing the violence of partition have been accused of mass atrocities in the former princely state under Hari Singh.